Minho, don't do this!
The hotel lobby glowed like polished honey that night. Marble floors, soft jazz, and the smell of roasted coffee drifting from the cafe. Linda added just her name tag for the 100th time, tapping her pen against the counter. It was a slow evening until her headset buzzed. Linda, VIP guest requesting personal assistance. Suite level. She sighed, tugging at her blazer. On it. Nothing unusual, until she saw him. Minho. The quiet, intimidating man who used to sit by the window at midnight, always with a black coffee and unreadable expression. They used to talk, small things, safe things. Stars, music, late-night cravings. He'd listen more than he spoke, eyes too sharp for someone so calm. Then one day, he stopped showing up. And now, he stood in the middle of the lobby, in a perfectly tailored black suit, looking like temptation carved into discipline. Minho? She blurted, eyes wide. Everyone turned. Even the front desk clerk froze mid-typing. He didn't answer. He walked closer, stopping right in front of her. His gaze was steady, almost cold, but there was something fragile beneath it, like he was holding his breath. Linda, he said quietly. You said you liked surprises. Her lips parted, confused. Yeah, but... Before she could finish, Minho dropped to one knee. Gasps echoed. The pianist stopped mid-note. Marry me, he said simply. No speech, no ring box. Just those words, sharp, sincere, and dangerous. Linda froze. Heat climbed up her neck. You're joking, right? He didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just looked at her like the world depended on her next breath. Her laugh cracked through the silence, nervous, shaky. Minho, get up, people are watching. He didn't move. For one long, dizzy second, she realized he wasn't joking. And somehow, that scared her more than anything he'd ever said. Linda storms out of the golden-lit hotel lobby, her heels clicking sharply on the polished marble, leaving Minho still on one knee with his hand extended in proposal, his face first frozen in stunned disbelief, then quickly flushing with a mix of embarrassment and simmering anger, eyes narrowing as he watches her walk away with fierce confidence. By morning, the entire hotel was alive with gossip. Housekeepers whispered over fresh linens. The barista nearly dropped her milk jug. The bellboys huddled near the elevators like reporters. Did you hear? The Mafia guy proposed to the concierge. She said no, right in front of him. She's brave. Or suicidal. Linda walked through it all with her head high and her heart pounding. Her name tag had never felt so heavy. Every glance followed her like heat from a spotlight. She kept smiling, kept greeting guests, kept pretending nothing happened, but inside, she was replaying last night in flashes. His voice. The silence. The way Head looked at her before standing and walking out, calm and wordless, as if Head swallowed every emotion he had left. No note. No explanation. Just his coffee mug, still sitting on the corner table, half full, going cold. Maybe He's embarrassed, her co-worker Tasha whispered, refilling sugar packets beside her. I mean, you're ejected a Mafia boss, girl. Linda forced a laugh. Please, don't say it like that. Hez. Just Minho. But even saying his name made her chest tighten. All day, she waited for him to appear again, to scold her, to tease her, something. But the suite stayed empty. His name was quietly removed from the guest registry before noon. By the time her shift ended, the silence was heavier than all the whispers. She sat at the cafe counter long after closing, staring at that forgotten mug. The coffee had gone bitter, untouched. So had the air. And somehow, she knew, this wasn't the end. It was just the pause before something much, much worse. Weeks passed. The gossip faded, but the unease didn't. Linda threw herself into work, polite smiles, steady hands, no hesitation. If she kept moving, maybe her thoughts wouldn't catch up. Maybe the ghost of that night would stop following her through the halls. But one afternoon, a ripple spread through the staff like static. Someone whispered in the break room, the hotel's been sold. By the next morning, everyone was buzzing. The new owner was arriving today. Linda had just her tie in the mirror of the staff lounge, trying to ignore the knot forming in her stomach. Probably just another rich guy, she muttered to herself. Someone whole fire half of us and repaint everything beige. She walked into the conference room with her notepad ready. And froze. He was already there. Minho. Standing at the head of the table in a tailored black suit, hair slicked back, face unreadable. The same calm that used to make her laugh now felt sharp enough to cut glass. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. The air thinned. For a second, she couldn't tell if she was breathing at all. He didn't look at her immediately. He was scanning the staff list, slow and deliberate, his tone steady when he finally spoke. "Good morning. I am Minho Lee, your new owner." No mention of the past. No trace of warmth. Just those words, smooth and final. Linda's fingers tightened around her pen. He continued, outlining new procedures, renovation plans, efficiency goals. Every word sounded professional, yet every order he gave landed like a coded message meant for her alone. "Front desk staff will rotate shifts personally approved by me." Linda felt the weight of his glance. "Some of you will have to add just a tighter supervision." Her pulse jumped. And then, his gaze finally found hers. A long, quiet second, not anger, not affection, something colder. Like a promise made under glass. When the meeting ended, everyone rushed out, whispering. Linda stayed behind, frozen. He didn't move until the room was empty. Then, softly, without looking up from his papers, "Let's continue our work." Her throat went dry. Because deep down, she understood what that meant. The pause was over. The game had just started. By the next morning, the game had rules, none spoken, but all painfully clear. Minho, the hotel's new owner, had turned professionalism into warfare. He never raised his voice, never mentioned the past, never even looked directly at her. But somehow, every word he spoke landed exactly where it hurt. "Miss Linda," he said evenly one afternoon, glancing over clipboard. "You'll be managing guest complaints from now on. The lobby desk will be reassigned. Translation: you're being demoted." She blinked, smiled sweetly. "Of course, sir. Should I also polish the floor with my tears, or would you prefer a mop?" His pen froze mid-signature. A flicker of something, irritation, amusement, crossed his face before he hid it again. That became their rhythm. Head walk by with silent orders, Shed toss a sarcastic spark over her shoulder. Head correct her tone, Shed correct his grammar. To the rest of the staff, they looked like a strict boss and his mildly rebellious employee. To Linda, it was a slow, delicious duel. Because she knew him, the way his jaw tightened when he was trying not to laugh, the way he tapped his ring against glass when he was restless. Every gesture screamed restraint, and she couldn't resist poking at it. "Good morning, boss," she chirped one day, leaning on the counter. "Would you like your usual coffee? Or maybe a cup of emotional detachment?" He didn't look up. "I already had some," he murmured. "You served it to me weeks ago." That one hit harder than she expected. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them felt heavier than the chandeliers above. She wanted to apologize. He wanted to walk away. Instead, he simply turned, hands in pockets, voice low. "Focus on work, Linda." "Always do," she said, and smiled, even when it hurt. That night, as she cleaned the counter long after closing, she noticed something strange. His coffee mug, the same one Head left behind weeks ago, was back on the shelf. Clean. Polished. Head brought it with him. She couldn't decide if that meant Head forgiven her, or if it was his quiet reminder that she hadn't seen the last of his revenge. Either way, the tension wasn't cooling down. It was only getting hotter. 2 days later, that heat found a door, and locked them both inside it. Linda had been told to join the renovation inspection of Minho's private suite, a newly remodeled penthouse that staff whispered about like it was haunted. The marble floors gleamed like mirrors, and the air smelled faintly of cedar and authority. Minho walked ahead, hands behind his back, explaining the suite's new security upgrades in that maddeningly calm voice. "Everything is automated," he said. "Voice recognition, digital locks, motion sensors." Linda circled the room, unimpressed. "So, if the power goes out, we all just starve to death in style?" He turned, brow raised. "It's not a toy, Linda. It's—" "Relax," she cut in, tapping the glowing panel beside the door. "See? I can handle your serious environment." Beep. Blink. Click. The panel went dark. The door sealed with a heavy electronic hiss. For a beat, silence. Then the lights dimmed slightly, as if the room itself were holding back a laugh. Minho's expression didn't change, but his jaw did tighten. "Linda." She blinked innocently. "Yes, boss? You just activated the lockdown protocol." "Wait, what?" She pressed the panel again. "Nothing." "Oh, come on, that's ridiculous. It's just a door." "It's a biometric system," he said flatly. "No one gets in or out without a reset code." She froze. "So we're stuck?" He exhaled, long and slow. "Until maintenance responds. Yes." Her eyes widened. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" "No, but I keep hoping you'll start." He pinched the bridge of his nose, muttering something in Korean that sounded suspiciously like a prayer for patience. Then, with resigned precision, he set his jacket down and loosened his tie. "Sit down," he said. "We'll be here a while." Linda crossed her arms. "Don't order me around, I didn't mean to lock us in." "Intent doesn't undo results," he said coolly. "Oh, that's rich coming from a man whose idea of handling rejection was buying an entire hotel." That cracked him. His mouth twitched. "You're still talking back." "Someone has to," she said, smiling despite herself. The tension shifted then, from frustration to something warmer, quieter. His eyes softened just a little, like he remembered the nights they used to talk about the stars and pretend they were just two ordinary people. He looked away first. "Next time," he murmured, "try not to prove yourself by breaking federal-grade security." She smirked. "Next time, try not to build one that can't handle me." And though neither would admit it, a part of them, the part that missed the laughter, the late-night coffee, the honesty between jokes, didn't mind being locked in at all. By midnight, that part had completely taken over. What began as awkward silence quickly turned into verbal combat. The suite echoed with sharp words, clattering objects, and sarcastic sighs that could have powered a wind turbine. "Can you not hum while I am working?" Minho said tightly, eyes fixed on his tablet. Linda, sprawled across the couch with a hotel blanket like it was a throne, hummed louder. "Oh, sorry, didn't realize this was the Library of Soul. Some of us are trying to send emails," he muttered. "Emails? In a lockdown? Wow. Dedication." She leaned over to peek. "To who? The ghosts?" He turned the tablet away, jaw clenching. "Linda." She grinned. "Yes, boss?" He pointed at her like a teacher scolding a child. "Quiet. 5 minutes. No noise. Deal." 30 seconds later, she started drumming her fingers against the table. Slowly, deliberately, with a little rhythm. He didn't look up. She increased the tempo. Finally, he slammed the tablet shut. "You're impossible." "Thank you," she said sweetly. "I practice." It was ridiculous. 2 adults, trapped in a luxury suite, arguing like teenagers on a field trip. But between every quip, every challenge, the air grew warmer. The silence between their words wasn't anger anymore. It was memory. He got up to refill his glass of water. She followed, just to annoy him. "Need help?" "No." "Sure. I am very good at supervising." He sighed. "Linda, I swear." But before he could finish, the ceiling light flickered, buzzed, and went out. A second later, a faint dripping sound came from the bathroom. Linda squinted. "Ah. Did your 5-star suite just cry?" He frowned, walking over. "No. It shouldn't." A gush of water spilled from the shower door. Linda yelped, slipping on the marble, but before she hit the floor, Minho caught her, one arm around her waist, the other braced against the wall. For a long second, neither moved. The only sound was the soft patter of water and her heartbeat thudding against his chest. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. His usual cold composure cracked, and then, for the first time since that night in the lobby, he smiled. Not the polite, controlled kind. A real smile. Warm. Disbelieving. Almost shy. "Don't look so proud," she teased quietly, still in his arms. "You're the one whose fancy system just drowned itself." He huffed a small laugh. "You're still impossible." "Still practicing," she whispered. And in that ridiculous, flooded penthouse, surrounded by chaos and flickering lights, Minho realized something he hadn't in weeks. Revenge was starting to feel a lot like falling in love again. The power finally went out around 2 in the morning. No air conditioning. No hum of machines. Just the sound of rain tapping softly against the windows and their uneven breathing in the dark. Minho had managed to find one emergency blanket. Thin, silvery, barely big enough for one. Naturally, Linda claimed half before he could argue. "Don't even start," she warned, pulling it over her shoulders. "I'm not freezing to death because your luxury suite thinks we're intruders." He sighed, stretching out beside her on the couch. "You started this. You bought the hotel." She shot back, voice muffled by the blanket. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, a small laugh escaped him. Quiet, real, tired. It startled her more than any argument ever could. "You're laughing?" she asked. "Apparently," he murmured. "I had forgotten what that feels like." Something softened in her chest. The blanket rustled as she shifted closer, partly for warmth, partly because it felt strange to be so far away when the whole world outside was silent. They lay there for a while, not touching, but close enough to feel the weight of what neither wanted to say. Finally, Linda spoke, her voice low. "You know, I missed this." He turned slightly. "Missed being trapped in a freezing room?" She smiled faintly. "Missed you. The way you used to talk. You were quiet, but when you spoke, it mattered." He exhaled through his nose, slow, careful. "I didn't mean to do it that way." The proposal. Her eyes widened a little. He wasn't looking at her, just staring up at the dark ceiling. "I wasn't thinking clearly," he continued. "I kept telling myself to wait. To do it properly. But every time I saw you, I forgot all the rules I ever learned about control." She swallowed. "So you panicked." "I did the opposite," he said softly. "I jumped." The honesty in his voice made something tighten in her throat. "You could have just said you liked me, you know." He turned his head then, meeting her eyes in the dim light. "Would that have made a difference?" She hesitated. "Maybe. Or maybe I still would have laughed. I get nervous when things feel too real." His lips curved. "You think I'm not nervous? I run half the city and still can't handle one stubborn concierge." She grinned. "Well, you did call me impossible." "I was right," he said. Then, quieter. "And yet, here you are." Her smile faltered, replaced by something gentler. She reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing his hand beneath the blanket. It was a small, fragile touch, the kind that could be ignored or treasured. He didn't move away. If anything, he tilted his hand just slightly, letting their fingers fit. "I should probably still fire you," he murmured. She laughed softly. "You should probably try not to." He looked down at their joined hands, hers warm, steady, alive, and said, almost to himself, "You make everything complicated." "That's how you know it's worth it," she said. For the first time in weeks, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was warm. Living. The kind of silence that doesn't demand to be filled, only shared. Minho turned toward her then, eyes softer than she'd ever seen. "Sleep," he whispered. "We'll figure everything else out when the doors unlock." Linda's lashes lowered, a faint smile on her lips. "And if they don't?" He brushed his thumb against her fingers, the gentlest, most careful touch he'd ever given. "Then I guess," he said quietly, "we stay here a little longer." But a little longer turned out to be just 3 hours. By dawn, the The power flickered back to life with a low hum, the lights buzzing back to their sterile brightness. The emergency systems beeped, the tablet glowed again, and somewhere in the hallway, a technician's muffled voice called, "Mr. Lee? Miss Linda?" The systems rebooted. Doors are about to unlock. For a heartbeat, both of them froze. It should have been a relief. It wasn't. Linda sat up first, the blanket slipping off her shoulders. "Well," she said, trying for lightness, "guess the great lockdown love story ends here." Minho stood slowly, buttoning his shirt with mechanical calm. His voice was quiet, but not cold. "Once that door opens," he said, "you'll walk out of my world again." She blinked, then squinted at him like he'd said something profoundly stupid. "Your world? Excuse me, Mr. Dramatic, last I checked, I work here too." "Not for long," he muttered, though it didn't sound like a threat this time. It sounded like regret. She tilted her head, smiling slyly. "Oh no, don't tell me the big scary Mafia boss is scared of losing me." He turned his back to her, straightening his tie. "I'm not scared." She stood and stretched, stepping closer. "Then why aren't you looking at me?" He stayed silent. "Right," she said, crossing her arms. "Because if you do, you'll remember last night. And if you remember last night, you'll realize you actually like me, which would totally ruin your brooding aesthetic." He exhaled through his nose, the corner of his mouth twitching despite himself. "You talk too much. And yet," she said, stepping closer, "you're still listening." That did it. The faintest smile broke through. Not the forced professional kind, but a real one, the kind that reached his eyes before he tried to hide it. She grinned, triumphant. "Ha! There it is. Proof that you can't resist me." He shook his head, almost laughing. "You're unbelievable. Correction. Irresistible. Delusional," he countered. "Confident," she shot back. They stood there like that, inches apart, trading sparks in the glow of the rebooted lights, until the electronic lock clicked open behind them. Neither moved. The door slid open just a few inches, enough for a strip of daylight to spill into the room. Linda turned toward it, then looked back at him. His eyes met hers, quiet but unreadable. "Well," she said softly, "guess that's our cue." He gave a small nod. "Guess so." But when she reached for the door handle, she paused, then closed it again, just enough for it to latch. "Oops," she said, turning back to him with a grin. "Guess we're still locked in." Minho stared at her for a long, stunned second before he finally laughed, the low, genuine kind that sounded like it hadn't escaped him in years. "Linda," he said, smiling helplessly, "you're impossible." She winked. "And yet, I'm still here. I didn't say I wanted to leave," she murmured, leaning back against the door. For a second, the air between them stopped moving. Minho blinked. Once. Twice. Then that unreadable mask he always wore cracked, just a little. His lips curved, slow and real, like the first sunrise after a long storm. "You're going to drive me insane," he said quietly. "Good," she shot back, her grin teasing but her eyes too soft to hide what she felt. And for the first time, neither of them tried to fix the silence. They just stood there, her by the door, him in the middle of the room, both knowing they'd already crossed the point of no return. They woke up to sunlight sneaking through the curtains, and the sound of the world outside already moving. Linda blinked at the clock. "Wait, it's almost noon?" Minho sat up, instantly alert, then glanced at the mess, half-eaten croissants, coffee cups, a fallen blanket tangled between them. For once, the Mafia boss looked genuinely panicked. "They'll think we..." Linda cut him off with a sleepy grin. "Oh, they already will." They scrambled to fix themselves, her hair an adorable chaos, his shirt buttoned wrong in his rush. He tried to comb his hair with his fingers, muttering something about reputation, while she stood at the mirror laughing. "Relax, big bad boss," she teased. "You look almost human." When the suite door finally opened, the hallway was full of onlookers, hotel staff pretending to pass by, baristas delivering nothing to no one, and even the manager standing at the far end pretending to check a clipboard. Every head turned. Every whisper rose like a wave. They came down together. "Look at them, They are glowing. Heir's smiling. The Mafia boss is smiling. Minho froze mid-step, jaw tightening as the whispers grew louder. Linda, of course, just smirked. Morning, everyone, she said cheerfully. Lovely day for professional bonding. Her? Tasha, her co-worker, nearly dropped a tray. Girl, she mouthed, eyes wide, what did you do to him last night? Linda only winked. Wouldn't you like to know? Minho shot her a warning look, the kind that once made men run. It didn't work on her. She just leaned closer and whispered, low enough for only him to hear. Next time, boss, maybe set an earlier alarm. He exhaled through a quiet laugh. He tried, and failed, to hide. Somewhere between irritation and adoration, he realized something impossible. He couldn't be feared anymore. Not by her. Not even by himself. As she walked ahead, waving casually at the gossiping staff, he followed with the smallest, most helpless smile. For the first time in years, the man who once ruled the city's shadows wasn't the one in control. And somehow, that felt like freedom. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll always be the first to catch my new stories.